Hello and welcome back to the Film Music House here at the Sundance Festival online. I am so excited to announce this next panel coming up. We are talking about music in TV, and I have incredible composers with me who have either been to Sundance themselves or work on so many amazing projects. We have Laura Karpman, we have Carlos Rafael Rivera, and we have Lorne Balfe. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello. Our pleasure, Jen. Always our pleasure.
Yes, excellent. Well, I'm going to kick us off right away because we are talking about TV at a film festival, but in fact, TV has eclipsed into a whole new realm of art form because what used to be viewed as just television, I find television is now quite on par with filmmaking. Do you guys see that on your own level of working on television products and film products? And how is it musically? Do you feel it's still just as demanding musically than a film would be?
I would let people who have done this longer than I have take over for now.
I don't know. I mean, it honestly, I don't know how Carlos and Lorne feel about this, but every project is its own thing, you know, and it really depends on what the needs of the project are or is. I guess I've lost track of my my plurals. But I think for Lovecraft, it was a massive undertaking. That was really the way that the showrunner saw it is 10 movies. I mean, there are obviously episodes of a story that go on, but each one sort of had a different genre. So I think it was very much like scoring film. But I have never, ever in my life made this big differentiation between what I work on, you know, even concert music, I'm the same composer going among various genres, and it's not some massive psychological or even a technical switch.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same with, you know, when people ask about games. There's no difference. There's no difference. I remember the first time I went to a certain royalty distribution company, and I went to one of their annual awards, and I remember going there, and somebody on my table was just saying who everybody was. Now this is 20 years ago, and they were just kind of pointing out the groups of composers, and they were saying now those are the game composers. That's them over there. It was basically a hierarchy, and then it's like, wow. Then you got, there's the TV composers. The poor jingle writers were back. They were not even kind of mentioned. And it's those are the TV.
They were in the outer rings.
They were getting takeout. And then it was like, and then those are the TV composers. But they're the film composers. And it was like an utter. I'd come from jingles, so firstly I was slightly quaking in my shorts because I thought, well, I couldn't believe that a hierarchy existed, but it absolutely did, and I think it blooming well did until recently, because it's like game composers get downtrodden on. They used to,
yeah,
and it's the same with TV, and I think TV now is, I think it's more. There's far more interesting stories being told because it's a different medium now, and basically, I think if you look at a job differently, I think that can create complications. We're all doing this because it's about the stories, and it's the same task, whether it's 1 hour of music or a TV show. The only differences are, I think, is the amount of music. That's all. How these network composers do it still astonishes me. An episode a week, right, every week. It's like, when do they breathe?
Right.
It's hard. You learn tricks, for that kind of production. When you're really doing like that weekly thing, and God knows I've done it. You learn how to write 40 minutes of music in 3 days, and it's really hard, but they're tricks. It's not ideal, but you learn. But the good news is that it makes, the thing that I love about that discipline, although I'm not really doing it right now, is that you don't over precisize anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like you do it, you ship it. You do it, you ship it. And there's something really freeing about that too, the projects that we're here talking about today don't fit in that. And which is interesting, Chandler, because, when you talk about different genres, there are different genres within genres, right? If you're working on certain kinds of television projects, they have longer timelines. You have different, you have an orchestra, you don't, you have larger groups. So you have different kinds of things that happen within a television landscape. But you're right, when you're doing, network episodic, unless you have a massive team and you've got 3 days to turn around music, it's a lot of it's living in the box for sure.
Yeah. I figure it's a lot of these folks have actually kind of come along. I'm just as in awe about that, but I kind of feel like in every kind of area, people find their way, and there's a composer like Kurt Farquhar who's just like doesn't stop working, and he has a schedule that doesn't even make sense, and that I admire, and I respect that kind of work ethic. I think what I'm actually really taken by is how, oh, sorry about that.
It's your agent. Take it. It's your agent.
No, it's spam risk, but it's the Mandalorian, which I love.
Yeah, I heard that right. That's funny. Don't play that right. You're gonna get a copyright infringement.
Oh yeah, I hope not. Yeah, it's not like I like Star Wars or anything because it's like Yoda there. But the fact that what I'm looking at is I'm in awe really of what you guys have done, even because I really liked what you were talking about, Laura, regarding the different areas within an area, within the TV landscape, and these kind of projects that I'm fortunate to be talking with you about is really like Lawrence is world building, and you really had so much incredible work to do. And I'm a big fan of the show, so I'm like already kind of like, wow, I'm getting to talk to you as well. But I can imagine the kind of work that goes behind the scenes is really a big kind of, it's just an overwhelming thought. And in Laura's experience with the show I've been watching as well, is how to blend in with the music that's picked, and not only, how to make everything along with Rafael, the music of a piece of the show. And I'm in awe of the kind of what the intention of Lovecraft Country is set out to do, and how successfully it's accomplished it, and it is different kind of music writing, I think, whereas Lorne is doing epic, you're doing something that's very personal, and it's a difficult line to walk, I can imagine, Laura, for you to try to write this music and be whatever the word honest would mean.
Well, Lovecraft is its own thing, because you have to play, because of what the show is about, which is basically taking pulp fiction and taking science fiction and horror genres and seeing Black and brown people in these roles for the first time. You have to play with genre in terms of film. So like in episode 4, Misha said to me, I want Raiders of the Lost Ark. And she didn't want me to copy John Williams, but she wanted it to be known that this was an homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it is social justice. It's political to make that statement. And so for Lovecraft, drawing from film genres and bringing them into this particular genre was the Nightmare on Elm Street, episode 3, war film, episode 6, so that every episode had a thing that it was doing. And there were obviously themes that were consistent throughout the show, but that was the thing of the show, was to make everyone really play with genre. And so it was super challenging and very, very rewarding as well. Thank you, though, for that, for noticing, and I appreciate that.
What kind of preparation do you guys do, by the way? So say like on your projects, Lovecraft, Queen's Gambit, and his Dark Materials, what kind of preparation goes into it? Are you getting a lot of scripts ahead of time because it is pretty scripted out, as it might be a limited series, or maybe you're only getting the pilot? Are you going after like notes from the director? Like Laura, you mentioned Raiders of the Lost Ark was a directive, but like, how are you guys preparing to shoulder what is essentially 10 films or whatever into a series?
Lorne?
I think I've got the easy card out of us three because mine was a book.
Right.
And
So
it was
yeah.
and I lived. You know, it was part of my my mental musical vocabulary for a long time. So subconsciously, it had, you know, not to sound pretentious, but subconsciously, it probably had started when reading it, and then so I think that really helped, because these characters, the show wasn't trying to kind of reinvent the books. You know, they had the author part of it, which when they had done this before, when they made the film, they didn't have that. So it was very loyal,
right.
And so the kind of the stepping stones were there, the characters. There was a long enough period about it, but you know, I think they may have had. I think, you know, I wasn't their first choice for it, and I just when I knew that they were making it, I went for it. You know, I wrote stuff because I knew these characters, and I you know, I wrote a kind of a musical job application to them and just said, you know, I've known this world, and I think because this is one thing that it is hard for all of us, and I don't think we don't fully comprehend this, but the show, these people are writing scripts and they're acting, they're working on it for years, and then we get invited, we're the last of the party normally. And then we go, so this lead actor, this is their theme now, what do you think about that? It's you know, when we're kind of late to it. So I think I was kind of more fortunate. I was fortunate that there was a kind of there was a world there. So I think you know, I don't know how everyone else did, but I basically I wrote the characters' themes.
Yeah, that sounds like a process, Lauren. Yeah, that you were really influenced by the characters, and that was your preparation. Is that you were so, you know, in love with the source material that the characters spoke to you so much that you seemed to write incredible themes for them.
The weird thing that only changed with me was when I kind of got involved with Mrs. Coulter was just that I think everything that theme I'd written, I don't know, 20. I got so many variations, different versions of it. And then the more I watched the show, it just kept changing. And then finally we realized, it was going to be a drum rhythm, because then, you know, anything else would make it more opinionated or like a pantomime. So
yeah, she's incredible.
So, well, that's the thing. I don't know, you know, she ticks every box.
Yes, she does.
That's a nutcase, but you're in awe of her.
Yes, you don't want to stop watching whatever she does next, for sure.
But no, I think if it's like being invited into Star Wars world or something. If you've got the characters that we've all known, I think obviously I found it very difficult and I struggled at great width, but it did help. It did help. No,
yeah.
You know.
Carlos, what about you? What was your prep?
Yeah, to jump on that very, very difficult part, I also felt like I was lucky to be involved with it from the novel. When I got the email from Scott Frank 2 years ago, he said, it looks like this may be the next thing we do with Netflix. And the subject line was Queen's Gambit. So I downloaded the book, read it in about a day. And I immediately was terrified. I was like, oh my God, it's about chess. What am I going to do? And how do you make chess interesting was already part of the conversation before I spoke to him about it. And he took care of so many amazing problems that visually would have been a hindrance. And he also made sure to appease, I guess, the chess community, because he got the best to help and advise, you know, and consult with. So the games are accurate. They're replays of fantastic historical games. And the shots and the editing with Michelle Tesoro, Stephen Meisler, cinematographer, But the big question for me was, how do I actually address that? And how do I get the tone right in the story that feels like tonally is very hard to nail musically? And the privilege of having so much advanced time to be able to write is that you make a lot of mistakes. I wrote a lot of things that was like, the director was like, this sucks. And I was like, yep, it does, doesn't it? And trying to get it right was more of the concern for both of us. And that really didn't happen until somewhere after the assemblies had started. Once we were really starting to watch, like episode 1 was like 2 hours in its first assembly. And it was just piano because Scott wanted it to be piano, like the whole series to be piano. So that's why the score ultimately ends up being piano centric. And I felt like I had to write my way out of the basement for a while because it was just, nothing was working, especially in the games. And to finish the thought is just, I found that writing contextually was what was going to save me. I started trying to do ballet sequences for the games and trying to just, every time there was going to be a template, and all that was getting no's from Scott. And what I love about our job is that we have to interpret why. They say no.
Yeah.
We have to go and figure it out. We're like, no, don't worry. Okay, I'll figure it out. You hang up. You're like, oh my God, that's our problem. So,
Yeah.
and so I kept trying to do different things. And I realized that contextually, if she's like in love or falling in like with someone, let's play that using the game as a canvas for that scene of music or that cue of music. So if she's going to play against Benny, who she's been talking up, and I kind of set up with some thematic stuff, let's use that in the game itself. And then, so it's battle music against Benny, or about different characters. And that's what got me through 20 some odd games of play. And I really felt like I was blessed because of the amount of time I had to get it wrong for a while.
Yeah. Did you find though, I find that by making mistakes, there's always something that comes from it. If it's not liked, and because some people just don't give a reason why it's not liked. They just say shit. So
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
but did you find that there was information coming from these experiments?
I think so. I think the color ultimately, I don't think I ever changed the color of the instrumentation, like the idea of the piano, and it was like this combined piano sound that I came up with, and the textures that I was using were the same. It's just the content sucked. You know what I mean? The content wasn't working. The music that I was writing with those same colors were the problem. And so through the failed experiments, it's not like it's 100% thrown away. I would guess because I'm writing to a screenplay and I'm writing before they shoot, I'm used to expecting 30% of the music to stay and most of it to go. But that 30%, like the main title, for example, was written after reading the book before the thing was shot. And the main title is contrapuntal, I guess you can say contrapuntal, and it's very much classical. And the idea of imitation is very much present in the main thing, because as a movement is a point counterpoint. The idea of that, and the fact that it's such an old game, you have to kind of rely on classical. And ultimately, it's because Walter Tevis, the author, makes a lot of classical music references in the novel itself. So you're like, oh God, I gotta do this, and I can't blow it, because people, that's a genre that or a style of music that's very well trotted, and you kind of got to get it right. And so that took a while, but the main title was never really changed. It was the content in itself and how it was being applied and when really was the big question.
What you're saying is you hit it out of the park straight away. You basically nailed it.
I should have said that and shut up.
He just went on and told us that he didn't.
That's the point. That's what he's getting at. I think, I should have just said it was easy.
Sequence. But then, it's hard to score thinking, which is what so much of that is, is like, and it's hard to score the mind and the machinations of the mind, and that's what the show did so beautifully, and what you did as well. And that I can imagine that taking a bunch of adjustments, because it's not easy.
And especially on the edits, because you'd score a game and it was a certain thing and you had a rhythm, and all of a sudden it gets cut. Right. I called Michelle the Tesoro once and I said, hey, listen, can you please, for this game? She's like, nope. And then hung up, because she don't care. And I love it. And we totally get along, but she knows where she's at. She's got to serve whatever Scott needs to see, and music's going to have to serve that. Whatever she gives me, I have to make it work. But I did make my call like that. Could you please for this one game? She's like, nope, bam. But that's how we get along, because we worked before and together before, and I respect that ultimately, because it's how you grow, you know. It's how I've been lucky. It was a college education without a doubt, you know.
Yeah.
And
You
Laura,
love
what
fiction,
about
though, obviously.
what about the Lovecraft? What was your preparation? What you mentioned it's a book, so I don't know. Did you read the book before?
Yeah,
or
but
how?
they took a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean a long time to hire us. So I read the book probably a year and a half before we got hired. And we had worked with Misha Green before on Underground. And so, but it wasn't, you know, it was a very different kind of gig, and a very different gig musically, and a very different gig in terms of the eyes that were on it. You know, it's a premium HBO show with a budget. I mean, Underground was super scrappy. So it took a long time. And when we got hired, we were in it. It was like we were scoring right away, and then COVID hit right then. I mean, our first spotting session, I think, was on March 2nd or something like that. And so then we had to figure out how we were going to record it, which was a whole thing, and which has been well documented. But we were in it right away without a lot of this, you know, and with and it's the same thing, I assume, with His Dark Materials. I've only seen a tiny bit of it, although I'm wondering, would it be good for my kid, like a 10-year-old, or is it too much?
I have no understanding of age limitations these days. You know,
He watches everything. He watches totally inappropriate programming. Let me just say that.
Okay, then yeah.
I only just found out, like, even certificate 12s, you're allowed to say the F word. I don't.
No, he's all in that. But you know, listen, it's been a long year. You know, what can I tell you? I don't. But we digress. Well, talking about kids. So here I was working on Lovecraft, which is pretty bloody. And so in my studio, there's kind of a center recording room that's quiet, but it's all glass. And so at the beginning, when everybody was a wreck, I mean, everybody still is a wreck, but when we really didn't know what was going on, he would come downstairs, because our studio is on the first floor of a kind of a 2-floor building. We live upstairs. He would come down, and we put him in this room, you know, this glass room, and he would do a Zoom, and it's soundproof, so it's fine. So I'd be zooming away, and then he'd come out, and he'd see literally like a bloody arm falling off on the screen. I was screaming in front of the other room, Mama, what are you doing? It's so scary, and crying. But yeah, you know, Misha is a very is a brilliant woman, and she knows what she wants, and there was trust there, because we had done another show. As I know, Carlos, you've worked with that showrunner quite a bit, but it was you know, there were changes. I had a hard time finding the love theme. It took me a bunch, you know, but it was a beautiful experience. I loved it, and the creative freedom was massive. I mean, I wrote this opera aria at the end of one of the episodes. I mean, literally.
I love that.
And I said to her, look, I want to write a requiem for these victims of the Tulsa massacre. And she said, yeah, try it. And it was absolutely an opera aria, without, speaking of like, of genre, I mean, it was not mitigated for television in any way, shape, or form. It was an aria. And never, ever in my whole career of 30 years have I ever had so many people reach out to me about anything that I had ever done. People from every imaginable walk of life. It was beautiful. And after that thing aired, I got in touch with friends of mine who are in opera, because opera happens to be my little dirty, bad habit, expensive habit. And I said, we're missing an audience here. You know, if this many people responded to that piece in that context, we're missing an audience that we don't have right now, you know?
Yeah.
What's an example of a good note you've gotten from a director or producer? And what's an example of a bad note? Like when you're getting feedback on music that you're being, that you've written, like for instance, I know like what I hear frequently is that composers don't like to get musical direction from people. They like to hear emotional direction, rather like, I need to feel more for this character rather than I want more drums or whatever. Like, so do you guys have any examples? Carlos, can you jump in? What's an example of a note that you got that you actually thought, that's a great note?
Well, again, I've had this one experience. I think the concern is more like when you don't know who you're getting, who you're supposed to listen to. I think may be the actual problem. Because I went through an experience where I did listen for the directors and they loved it, and they were like, oh my gosh, and my wife cried, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden the studio was like, did you get the notes from us? And I'm like, no, not yet. Well, that changed everything. And but what I love about, my relationship with Scott so far is that, he basically called me at one point when I was getting it wrong. And he says, Carlos, you're scoring the wrong movie. And it was a fantastic note because it's brutal and he is brutal. And I kind of like the honest back and forth as opposed to some kind of careful approach to anything, because everybody's kind of just trying to do something right. They're all trying to get it right. And he was calling me, he said, you're scoring the wrong movie. And that note just stayed with me for the terror that would kind of create, because I've been writing some music already. And the fact that it wasn't working to picture when I thought it was. And that was a fantastic note, because it made me think I have to rearrange how I'm approaching this. And I didn't have a clear, specific answer, anything regarding the emotional aspects. He did give me a lot of freedom, and the freedom was to screw up, But that note is one of the stronger ones that stayed with me, because it really had made me have to sort of rethink it. And the answer to how you rethink it, I don't think it can be concretely put. I think all of us go through our own process of hoping that the next thing you present is approved. And that's the only way you get through it, is by doing. Just make it again, just shut up and do it. Just shut up and write. And that's the way out, always for me, is just to do another one.
I pulled up some notes, because all of her notes are great and I love them. Music can be a little askew and can put some pressure on Hippolyta towards the end of the scene. Music can be mobilizing, putting a plan together. Music. 21-ish, music can shift to conveying the team is coming together. 21:50, music should gesture for Christina wanting the book by shifting into tension music. 22:35, music gets more urgent. Quote, she took my vulnerability. I love those notes.
That's amazing.
They're super specific. They're not musical. They're using words like urgency. This is for the last episode, so it wasn't like it doesn't work, which there are. And then her big praise is nice cue. That's the best I ever got. Nice.
Yes.
Nice cue. But anyway, she's not effusive. But I love those notes. She is those are pro notes. Those are easy to do. You just go in and you take them.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, what about you?
It's an interesting thing. I was told a long time ago that that when we get told something, the last thing we should do is, when we get told it doesn't work, I don't like it, is what naturally happens is we switch off. We kind of start getting either defensive or we kind of shut down because of it. And I've always just been very aware of kind of not trying to not do that, because you spend a week on writing something, you think you've nailed this character's emotion, and then all of a sudden you get to no, it doesn't work. So I think you every single thing. I don't mind musical notes. The fact is, it's why not? I think any word that can help you get through that barrier that we need. So I think I've had every note. I've had every swear word known to man. I've had every but also, you know, the one thing that because of COVID, I think has been, it's not about what I miss isn't about words. It's about the reactions with people.
Yeah, true.
And that's been the biggest thing where I've seen before where somebody's kicked out a 5-minute queue. But at least I knew why, and it was just this one thing.
Right.
And you saw it in the body language, and you saw what happened. But then reading it down, it sounded like the end of the world.
I know.
So it's not always just about words. It's about, and that's why I think, you know, you create friendships, but a bond with who we work with. But it's sensing the room and sensing somebody's body language, where all of a sudden, just some people just don't like trumpets. They just don't like them. And
or oboe.
Yeah, there's something. And
you mute the oboe and the cue gets approved. But on the internet, you're through 53 rounds before you figure that out, you know, and in a room, you just say, hey, let's try doing this.
Yeah.
So you're right. I don't know though, Lorne, I don't know if we're going back. I hope we are, but I think people are lazy, and particularly
I'm going back. You can come up, you can all join me, but I'm if I have to do another, you know, Zoom, it's not what I signed up for.
No, it's very hard. It's tedious. It makes everything tedious in a way that it doesn't have to be, right?
Yes.
That it's just, but on the other hand, here we are, the three of us. We wouldn't be,
Yeah.
we might all be at Sundance. We might all be in our Uggs, looking fashionably cold.
You know, you never get me in Uggs.
Right. But you see, you wouldn't be at Sundance, you know, no teasing. But, you know, so there are certain things about it that have been good, and that there's this kind of, I mean, I've done so many of these kinds of things, and like I was reached out to by somebody, and I don't think I would have done it had it not been Zoom. But I thought, you know what, I would like to talk to these people, by a college in like West Virginia. I know, and I've really been saying no to a lot of stuff, but I thought, you know what, I'd like to talk to those people about Lovecraft and what it is and what it means, and, you know, because it's important. But I don't know. There are good things, but the client meetings are definitely, you do miss that. And ultimately, even though having people over and it is stressful in its own way, it's so much more efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
My last question. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. No,
sorry. You know, the interesting thing also about the notes, and it's something that I try to ask it now, because it's something I never used to. But if you play a piece of music, they say, great, love it, great. You naturally kind of move on.
I know.
And what I've been finding now is not because I sit and I want to kind of put my feet up and go, come on, tell me why, indulge my ego. What I find is that I kind of dig into it, and I say, so why is it working? Especially if I've had other stuff not. Just to figure out what's the DNA of that piece of information, instead of just taking the praise, it's to kind of go, oh, okay, so is it, you know, is the instrumentation, is that something for, and you put again, it's the notes of, we're late to the party, we don't know why, no matter what we write for that scene is never working. We don't understand, and then all of a sudden we find out they only got a couple of takes. They didn't get the performance. There's information that we're not privy to, and then once you get that privy, you're brought into. You then understand. Oh, I get it. We've got to, and it's not always, but we've got to fix that. What's not there. So the notes is us, you know, being Holmes, Sherlock Holmes or something. That's where I look at it, because it's something that we just don't know about.
That's actually a really nice little nugget of advice that I have never heard. which is dig into the yeses as much as you dig into the nos. That's good. It's smart.
It's just because firstly, I don't being British, compliments are not received at all well. You kind of start
being American, they're received enormously well, and I enjoy them tremendously. And sometimes I even elicit them, I shall say.
Yeah, yes.
Wasn't that fabulous? You know, that kind of, go on. Or
I would
that.
say being Hispanic.
Go on. Yeah.
Being Hispanic, they're received enormously well, but I feel bad about it.
Ah, God.
I don't know.
Being Jewish. No, let's stop. Let's
keep going.
Let's get off this thing, right? Okay. As a lesbian, I might say that.
I've got a question. Chandler, are you actually in a cinema?
I'm not.
No,
Okay.
No, this is a virtual background.
I know.
I miss cinemas though. I miss watching movies.
You're the only
in
one
movie
that
theaters.
is, so good on you.
Yeah, so, well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this panel. The one question I wanted to send you off on, because I'm always very curious, is what's a phone call you would love to receive to work on a project? It could be the next Star Wars movie, if that's your vibe, you know. What's a call that you want to get from somebody or your agent, and just to be like, hey, this person wants to work with you, or this project has come up that you would just be so thrilled to get?
Just remember, tempting fate sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the old Bond mentality, isn't it? If you say you're going to be the next Bond, you never will.
Yep. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be if you want to say a franchise. You could
No,
you could say a sci-fi thriller, whatever.
I wouldn't want to even the fact that I'm even here is beyond me. Like the fact that this conversation is happening, or so what kind of phone call? Getting a phone call is awesome. That's the truth. Let's just be real. Yeah, let's just get to the phone call. Then we'll get picky about it. But so I have no. I mean, you can compare the IMDb's and you'll have a clear idea as to why I'm saying that. So I'm just grateful, man. I'm grateful to be here at all. It really is a thrill to get to talk to you guys. So I'll shut up.
I like that. Yeah, privilege. It's about if the phone call rings. But it is that, and I don't, we all, I suppose, we all kind of look. Personally, I don't know, because I just don't. I think the one thing that I'm kind of in, I'm a massive horror fan. That's what I watch all the time, and my Netflix is just continuous horror, and I just sit. It's not because I enjoy getting scared. I just absorb myself into it, and I think that's a genre to me. I'm too scared to ever do it, because I don't know what you would do. Because you look at things like Paranormal Activity, there is no music in it, and it works.
Right. And
so what are you going to do? Then you watch something like The Conjuring, and it's brilliant, and the music works. So I don't know how to do it. So I'm not going to say a person, because I would say a genre. Mine is a genre, Chandler. Somebody phoning up and saying you got a home, but I wouldn't. But then I don't know how you do it.
That's maybe why it's attractive, because you feel like it's a great challenge, right? I mean, did it start with Creepshow? Is that like one of the first movies you started watching, or I'm trying to think of where the horror genre started for you?
Well, I can tell it's American Werewolf.
Yes.
At a very young age, where I should not have been watching it.
Yes, just to answer Laura's question. Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, I was like 9, I think, when I saw that. Shouldn't have seen that, you know. But it was that and Creepshow, and that the early '80s stuff was heaven for me. So I'm glad he liked that genre, because that's sort of like I live there too. Outside.
Love it. And what they're doing with horror at the moment, it's like Scream just kind of went and ruined, in a good way, ruined every cliche. It's like, you can't do build-ups, you can't do this, you misguide. It's not the goriness. It's nothing to do with that. I enjoy it. So yeah, mine is a genre, not a person. But my second is I'm just grateful for the call.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Laura, what about you? What's something you would love to get a call about?
Well, you know, as I've been waiting to answer the question, I've had about 45 different answers for it. I can't knows the truth.
No, you're going to say 45 different calls.
No, no. But, you know, but look, I'm going to be very honest because I think it's important to be. Yeah. I've been working in this business for 30 years. I have probably in the last 6 months has been the first time that people have reached out to me to score projects without me having to create reels or demos or anything like that. Wow. It has been, you know, because of my sex, it has been a long, long haul, and a long haul of not scoring the kinds of projects that I am gravitationally pulled to. Not that I haven't appreciated all the work, but working for 10 years in network television movies was probably not what I would have set out to do, although I was glad for that training. Now I'm working with orchestra. You know, I have a doctorate from Juilliard. I'm a well-trained classical composer. So, I mean, that was always something that I was capable of doing, but never trusted to do. But that has changed largely through a lot of the work that, you know, that Chandler and I and others have put into advocacy for women composers and people of color. So I think it's important to say that. If I see a film, like I saw this film called The 40-Year-Old Version, I thought, my God, I want to work with her. Or I'd love to work with Mira Nair. But I think really, if I'm to answer that question very honestly, before I leave the planet Earth, I would love to do a big movie, if those even exist anymore. I would love the opportunity. I've gotten close, and I've never done like a massive movie, and I think I'd like to accomplish that. I think that's something I'd like to do, and not have done it, you know, because of
like a bucket list thing,
you know.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you get that call for the big movie and the horror film and the phone call period, because you all deserve more and more work, because you're doing incredible music on TV, film, and everything. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to speak here at the Film Music House at Sundance, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.